Hey everyone, welcome back. BetSperts Golf 2023 Travelers Championship coming off of an interesting U.S. Open that I think we should talk about at the top. A lot of discourse on both sides, I think, joined as always by my friend looking very handsome and dapper today. The button up, Andy Mauldner. What's going on, bud?
Yeah, you can always tell when I get a new Stitch Fix because I wear new shirts for like 5 days straight. I didn't fully get into the whole hey, let's shit on the course for the whole tournament. Like everyone getting so mad. Like, I think everyone who gets mad about anything about sports should take a step back and remember like March 3 years ago where there was no sports. They took
For
it all
real.
away.
Yeah.
You could always have no sports. I sound like such a parent. Like, oh, you don't like this Nintendo? Maybe you don't have a Nintendo Switch at all. Maybe I take it away for a month and you don't get to play any of your games if you don't like this new game. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't get excited about like harken back to Quail Hollow's replacement a couple years ago where Potomac was like, oh my God, this was supposed to be tough. Guy shot -7 for first round leader. And then, of course, it toughened up. And
Yeah.
of course, we ended up with, probably the score was a little lower than we thought. But I said, not seeing the course, I didn't know. My only real takeaway from the entire tournament, my review of LACC is like, I can't believe the interpretation of the rules were for him to get out of the bunker and to drop it up on the fringe like that, basically. Like, Rory should have lost by 3 shots. Honestly,
Yeah.
Getting out of that bunker, you're basically if you drop it just below where it was, you'd have to hit backwards. Honestly, like that was such a big reward for such a terrible shot, the embedment rule or whatever it is. So I never quite understand all the millions of golf rules. I thought that was kind of if anything, it did keep the end of the tournament exciting because I mean, still 18 was an easy hole, but Clark still had to make a couple of pretty good golf shots. Like you have to find the fairway, and then your second shot's like 200 yards per near, so you have to have a pretty good iron shot and find yourself. And I mean, once he ended up closer than 100 feet, I'm sure he can lag putt. That's all he did the whole tournament. Like that's what won the tournament was lag putting, really good wedge play, really good chipping, really good pitching. Like short game. I don't have the credit to give to someone, but I'm sure this isn't something he came up with. It's something some golf teacher has done with. But somebody had, maybe it was in my For You on Twitter, and it said, "Hey, I'm taking up golf. I've never golfed before. What should I do just so like I don't? What should I work on first? Because obviously I'm going to suck." And one guy says, "Go like 30 yards out from the pin. Go right past the tee box. Go 30 yards out from the pin." Play all 18 holes that way until you can shoot par from there, and then move to like 70 yards until you can shoot par from there, and repeat till you get to like 150 and whatever, and then you're ready for the tee box. It's basically like figure out pitching, figure out your short game, figure out putting first before you even grab your driver. And maybe that's the way to go because, Christ, all these guys, like nobody's like on the tour who's decent. It's like a bad driver of the balls. It always seems to come down to like who can have a spike putting week on these birdie fests, who can play good around the green, and honestly, obviously, like your irons are very important always. But man, it just seemed to really gravitate towards a lot of guys would have given up that lead because they would not have made those wedge shots.
Yeah, he played, I don't know, he played terrific. Some other guys did too at different times, but to do that in that moment, I thought was impressive. And, I was pissed about the Rory thing in the moment too, because obviously I'm holding a hefty Wyndham ticket. And no, I was very frustrated. I felt really good because I knew I had you on my side because once it boiled down to Rory and Clark, I'm like, well, I know I got, Andy's in this with me emotionally. So I like the course. So I think you got to separate into a couple different buckets. I was all in on the course pre-tournament, and I don't think the course disappointed. Now, to the casuals, I just kind of don't understand why everyone wants to see complete carnage where it's like vanilla carnage. And, like I like Torrey from an aesthetic standpoint when it's on TV because the cliffs and it's beautiful. But I know a lot of like hardcore golf architect people, like they don't like Torrey because it's pretty much a lot of the same stuff, right? A lot of like just they narrow the fairways when they had the US Open there a couple years ago. They grow the rough out, and everyone's just kind of doing the same thing. I love that this course had like 18 pretty unique holes, and guys could play them differently. And sure, the fairways were really wide, and people are pissed that like Wyndham could do that on 18 and not be punished for it. But, like everyone played 18 4 times. Like it's a big ass fairway, and it was, that's probably in the rough in some other spots, but he knew that it wasn't here, and it opened up an angle to the green to get him into the front. And he probably didn't want it to kind of bail out that far. I joked on Twitter that, if you had a ticket, it's called a buttercut. Whereas, if you didn't and you were back in Rory here, it was a slice that you wish had been punished. Course I thought was great. The club and how the kind of the USGA and how they got set up, like you really can't.
A little rough.
Yeah, you really can't do anything about the weather. And I think that massively impacted the early perception of the course, because obviously when you have 2 guys go out and shoot 82 or 62 and 8 under, no one shoots 80. Everyone's like, well, what the hell is this? This is the John Deere Classic, or this is, the Travelers. I thought it was next week, and all those types of jokes. And as you mentioned, it kind of,
TPCLA.
Yeah, it kind of,
that was the joke.
Came back, but they didn't really do anything funky in reaction to what happened. Like, let the course play itself out. This is going to get a little bit trickier. Once you get the marine layer to roll off, this place is going to get a little bit firmer and faster. We got some unique pins coming up for later in the weekends, and I thought that it showed really well. Now, the club piece is obviously getting a lot of discussion, and rightfully so.
Oh, yeah, like apparently they bought a bunch of tickets and just like burnt them. Like that's what bothered me. It's funny. I'm going to have a second COVID reference here. It felt like those COVID ones where it's like, hey, the only people out on the course are the people working here.
Yeah.
Or the caddies. And it felt really odd. And then it's nuts how it went from that for like the first couple days. And then the 18th hole on Sunday was the fucking Waterbury Open.
Yeah. I'm panicking for Wyndham.
People like scrambling. And somebody, I don't remember who brought it up. Maybe Wes Reynolds. Somebody brought up a pretty good point. He's like, hey, if this goes to a playoff, they're going to play 18. And we just let like 1,000 people trample 18, which was kind of wild considering it was a one shot. And, that putt Rory had wasn't a high probability putt, obviously, but that's like a 1% putt. And, Wyndham lag putting from 60 was feeling pretty good, but the nerves are definitely there. Like maybe he leaves himself a little tester. Like the odds of a playoff were probably like 5 to 10% maybe at that point. I wouldn't have let people trample the fairway. So otherwise, no, like it was a good Sunday. People say, well, it's a 2-horse race. That wasn't a 2-horse race is fun as well. Like when 2 guys are battling back and forth, especially when they're not in the same group and they kind of they hear the roar from a different group. Yeah, that part's fun to me a lot. So honestly, it was a great viewing Sunday. My only gripe was that like it was over and it was like bedtime. Like, oh my God, it's like 9:00.
I know. Yeah, that was definitely difficult. I like the prime time, but yeah, it's a little challenging on a Father's Day weekend. But yeah, I mean, the club thing, burning the tickets. I think in general too, they had just fewer available going into it because they're thinking, hey, location wise, it's really hard to shuttle 60,000 people in and out of this place.
You ever been to Century City? Like sometimes the traffic's not great in LA, guys.
I've heard that. Yeah. Yeah. So I get so we started it. It was going to be a little bit lighter anyway. And then it sounds like there were some bad actors in the mix in terms of the LACC stuff. So not great. And the TV coverage was absolutely awful. I mean, I was really frustrated on Saturday. I thought it was abysmal. We got a ton of Jason Day on Friday afternoon when he was like 5 shots off of even sniffing the cut. We're barely seeing any Scotty. And again, I'm holding a pretty big Scotty ticket too. I want to see some of that. Like, why are we seeing Scotty and Cam miss like 3-4 holes at a time? Like, it just is really, really strange coverage. More commercial breaks than they talked about. They said they were going to be dialing back commercial breaks. The like special group stuff was just the stuff they were showing on TV. They only had 2 featured holes. It was bad. It was really bad, and I'm glad that
especially compared to what ESPN has been and CBS have been able to put together over the years, like the ESPN coverage, the ESPN Plus coverage, where you can watch it's like, hey, it's round 1. Here's 5 different streams you can watch right now, like right away in the morning, and obviously the Masters here's like 30. But yeah, disappointing. Azinger third COVID reference, when they used to have the guys who weren't at the arena calling like NBA games. This is going to be my conspiracy theory. I don't think Azinger was on the course. I think he was somewhere else because he wasn't watching the same tournament. He wasn't watching the same golf shots. Either that or he'd just gotten his eyes dilated at the optometrist or something. There were some very rough shot calls. Like, oh, it was like only a couple guys. Somebody had a great tweet about that. It's like Rory hits one, like lands on the green, rolls into a drainage ditch 30 yards off the green. Only a couple guys in golf can actually make that shot, guys. Yes, it was odd and off-putting at times. I will give them credit where it's due. If we're going to shit on NBC, I'm going to give them credit. The no commercials for like the last 5 holes.
Yeah.
That should be standard fare for every major. Yeah. Honestly, that should be standard fare for every Sunday. Like, just I don't even care. Pound me with commercials all afternoon. If you're willing to, I'm willing to make that trade-off. Give me a shitload of playing through for like the first 9 holes of the leaders. And I would trade that off for no commercial breaks for like the last 5 holes of the leading groups. Yeah. That shit was awesome. Just continual golf, basically every golf shot from the final couple groups for the last 5-6 holes. So that part was really good. And obviously the drama helped. So great tournament. Honestly, pretty good major.
Yeah. I mean,
and congrats to you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
I think even if it wouldn't have been Rory and, a guy I dislike and someone we had made a case for in Wyndham Clark, I would have been rooting for the underdog in that spot regardless.
For sure.
It's just a super fun story, especially since everybody has just been on Ricky's dick for like a month now, and he's using Ricky's putter. That part's the funniest part for me. He's like, he said it. He's like, I liked how that putter looked. He's like, so I just had someone get me the exact same putter.
I was listening to the No Laying Up guys on Saturday night after the 3rd round. You wouldn't even known that Wyndham Clark was in the mix. It was just like, are we still Scotty now all of a sudden with that, again, that flurry of a finish on 17 with the eagle, and then he pars 8 or birdies 18. All of a sudden, Scotty went from 7 back to 3 back. Or is Ricky going to get this done? Or is this finally Rory's time? And it's like, holy shit, like Wyndham Clark is right here. He's like, what did Wyndham Clark do on 18 after, as dark? He missed that putt on 17 to bogey. And then he spins that club Tiger style, hits the pin, drains the putt, puts himself in the final group on that shot, which I think was a pretty massive thing too, right?
That probably cost Rory.
Yeah, I think that was huge for him. Just that little piece. So yeah, I mean, and I get it. Like, I enjoy the No Laying Up guys probably more than some others. They definitely have, just like we do at times, they're fanboys. They have their guys they make cases for that they've been doing for years. And it was very much pro Ricky, pro Scotty, and then pro Rory, and that guys, Wyndham Clark is still playing and still in this mix. So it was good to see kind of the underdog who, I love the whole storyline around the stuff he's telling himself, play cocky, enjoy the group and the course, and then remember the other two when everything starts to go sideways. So a guy who kind of started to believe in himself, and rightfully so, winning Quail Hollow. That's kind of the case I made last week. This is a shift into like this ascension that we saw from Max last year's when you
he won up Max by getting the major.
Poor Max, man.
God, poor Max. Yeah, Max. Maybe a quick look back to it. Some of the stuff too, like JT, Max, a couple guys. I mean, this happens every major. There's always some of these big names that just don't have good tournaments. Like it's predictable, but man, JT might be a little broken right now. Max, I think, is going to be fine in non-majors, but man, that I don't guess that narrative is going to continue for sure. at least the Open now.
Yeah.
But otherwise, that leaderboard, and if you didn't have a Wyndham Clark ticket, maybe the leaderboard was had one extra toe. But man, I mean, there were some fun names in the last few groups heading into Sunday on a major. So overall, I give it a 8.5 out of 10 on the major scale.
And I'll do this because I know you won't. And again, I'm not super pro Rory, but like Rory gets a lot of heat. Again, this harkens back to the Open Championship where he just couldn't go out and take it. He let Cam sneak in the back end. And it's like he gets kind of dumped on for not being able to close the deal yet again. And it's like, I mean, he continues to
He
put
went out-
himself in the mix.
I know he puts himself in the mix, but he goes out and shoots a 70.
I know.
Like
He burned so many edges on putts on Sunday afternoon, similar to
everybody
what happened to the
was.
Open. It was rough. So, I mean,
I'm
again,
not sure I saw a putt made over like 10 feet for like the last 3 hours of the coverage, man.
Yeah.
Every time they'd go to DJ, it's like, here's a 9-footer. Nope. Obviously, Ricky missed a ton. Ricky's melt kind of hurt.
I know.
I'm starting to cheer for him a little. I wish he would have been able to get into Augusta. Obviously, he will now. I'm certainly sure his rankings, so WGR stuff will have him playing all 4 majors next year if he can keep this up. But otherwise, yeah, it was those greens. I don't know if they rolled them and double mowed them or what they did, but they were playing tight. They were playing like a 15, man. So that's what you want on Sunday. You want the putts to be tough. You don't want gimmies, which is kind of a good segue into this one because these greens are going to roll pure this week. You're going to see some guys just sinking 15 foot. Like a 15-footer is not the tester it was last week. That's like, this is super makeable, especially if I'm below the pin and I don't have much break on this. This is absolutely makeable on a lot of holes. So there's gonna be a lot of longer made putts this week.
Yeah, interesting course. We'll shift to the Travelers. Producer Dan, boots in the ground. We'll probably get some good content. Hopefully, he'll be following maybe our new favorite son, and we'll talk about him later in the show. Be chasing some of those tickets, but we've been coming to Cromwell, Connecticut for a very long time for the Travelers. It is, when we have that data, it's always really interesting. And we've seen a really wide dispersion of styles win this golf tournament. And that makes it, I think, sometimes hard to handicap. But again, the last Pete Dye track that we'll see this season, and that's kind of the nature of Pete Dye tracks, is that it kind of brings, some of those guys that really can't compete oftentimes because of their lack of distance into the mix here. But we've also seen Bubba and DJ play really well here too. Like, right, Xander last year, Sahith, like they can hit it out there. So it doesn't have to just be a plotter's course. So elevated events, again, putting these elevated events right behind a major is always, I think, pretty interesting. But we got a great field, pretty loaded field, top 8 in the world. This is the 4th shortest course on rotation right now. It is Pete Dye positional stuff, but you can get out there. Some guys will be able to get by with less than driver, because you're going to have to avoid, especially in the final little stretch there. Again, as you see here in the notes, dog legs, penal roughs. They do a good job with tucking the pins to kind of be a little bit of the defense here to make it a little bit tricky, so you are leaving yourself with longer putts, like Andy mentioned. But again, mentioning guys like Bubba, this is a shot shapers course. You got to be able to be dialed in. You have a lot of short irons. So we've had a lot of courses on rotation here of late where we're having like 175 to 225. Here, it's like a lot of shots are basically in that 150 bucket. I believe it's 151 yards is the average approach shot. Is the shortest on tour per average. So you're going to have guys that a little bit of a different skill set being dialed in here. So par 70 at 6,800 yards is just kind of unusual in terms of what we see rotation wise.
Okay.
Umbrella.
Yeah.
See that beautiful umbrella?
Yeah, nice umbrella. It is the umbrella double. Yeah, and it is weird. You have some of these guys, it's like, hey, this is a bomber. It's not that there's a weird relationship to bombers who have had success at positional golf courses like this, because there are a ton of holes where they're clubbing down. But some of these guys are just, they have the good club speed with a driver. It's not like you put a different club in their hand and be like, well, I don't know what to do with this. The weight's all different. It's just, the head's smaller. The club speed is still club speed. Hand speed is hand speed. And these guys that, can hit it 325 on the regular, when you give them a 3-wood, when you give them a 5-wood, when you hit a 2-iron or whatever they're deciding to use, when they're clubbing down on some of these shots where they need to, they're still going to put it in a spot where some of the other guys can't. And I think that's where you gain a lot of the, strokes gained off the tee with some of these guys who are just bombers despite having to club down at a course like this. So there's, like you said, there's a lot of different ways to there's not like a set archetype of, hey, this is the kind of golfer that plays well here. There are a few different ones, which makes you lean on, I think when you get to, a spot like this, and we're looking at this, course history is a little more predictive at a place like this. Still not something you should be basing like 50% of your weighting off of, guys.
Yeah.
It's still very noisy, but course history matters. Form obviously always matters. I think it matters a little more when you have less of an archetype, and then getting a little more granular on some of these stats and just looking at the relationship between some of these stats. Like, hey, this guy's a bomber, but his proximity kind of sucks from 100 to 150, where a lot of these wedge shots will be for him. Like, is it still somebody I like? So digging deeper on a few of these guys before you hit click, I think is gonna help you with a course like this.
Yeah, you make some good points. I do think, because we have come here often, like, I'm gonna look at course history, but like flying in the face of that a little bit is we've had some like debutantes win here, guys coming over and making their first start here. Some guys I like this week too are guys that I think profile well for this course, but just don't have a long history of coming here. Again, an elevated event now. We're bringing some of the best of the world. And I like your point too. I think that's really important, even more so when we have a spot where anyone can win. I want to kind of lean even more so on recent form, who's playing really well, knowing that just that's probably the most predictive thing. Again, form is fickle. It can go away, but I'd just rather have some guy played really well last week, who has been dialed in on some of these, granular stats like you mentioned that I think are going to pop here. How are you performing in that metric? Those things I think lead more to me, even more than course history. I'm looking at it, but it's a very small part for me, honestly, this week.
Yeah.
So, reminder too, a shout out to Sam, always letting people know, watching on YouTube, like button, thumbs up, all those things go a long way. We appreciate it very much. Comments, give us some of your winners, guys. You're eyeballing here for the travelers in the comment section. We appreciate it. Podcast form, same thing, 5 stars, all those things go a long way in helping us out tremendously. Again, you want to get a membership subscription with us over at BetSports Golf, because some of the numbers we're going to talk about today are possibly gone. We push those numbers out to our subscribers via our Discord, which is a feature of the subscription. And those numbers, this is a very reactionary market on a Monday morning. And you see some pretty drastic swings, even with the Wyndham Clark thing. Wyndham Clark, I got at 120. I saw a bunch of people that had 80 tickets. Now, again, they're very happy cashing their 80. I was a little bit more happy cashing my 120.
Yeah.
So like these things, again, 40-point swings can happen here. So $19.99 for a month. We're discounting it right now with the Wyndham Clark 120, just 120 for the year. So look to take advantage of that. So top of the board, Andy, like you said, we are dealing with an elevated event, designated event. Scotty, Rom, everyone's here. What are your thoughts? Are you shooting anything here at the top of the board?
How do you differentiate between some of these guys? I did kind of avoid the top of the board. You're coming off the major. Scotty, I mean, even last week we talked about Scotty. The Scotty problem reared its ugly head. Like, I know for him to not win would be probably about minus 1,000. If you want to bet Scotty does not win.
Yeah.
Like, I want some sort of exacta where Scotty to top 5, but not win. Scotty exactly second, third, fourth, or fifth. One of those kind of bets, because he's just always going to be in the mix. And I mean, our favorite tweeter of all time now suddenly is Michael Kim, who, I think he took it to heart. People were like excited about his tweets because suddenly he's tweeting a lot, and everything he was putting out was really good. And I think it was him that pointed out that, like, hey, to be doing this and being called like, hey, you're having issues with this, that, and still be like in the top 10 constantly. I don't think you know how hard that is. Scotty's game is so good, but I mean, his short game sucks right now. And I certainly can't bet somebody that short who's going to lose strokes on the green constantly, especially when it's not just like, Scotty showing up to a Texas event and it's him and the next best golfer is the 20th in the world kind of thing. It's, it's an elevated event with everyone here. So Rahm, Cantlay, Rory, Victor, Sander, Colin, everybody else. Like, I can't be betting someone at 650 who can't putt right now. I don't know what to make of Rahm. I can definitely give him a pass for a lot of last week. He's still very good. This course fits him. Same thing with Patrick and Rory, but again, I'm not super excited about 10-1s on something like this. Basically a full field event where there's still plenty of good golfers throughout the mid-range. So I didn't really get excited until I get to Victor and Colin. And again, I'm not quite there with the prices. I kind of skipped the first 8 guys, honestly. some of them, it might be, hey, let's look at what top 10 pricing is for you and see if I think there's a little value. But otherwise, I skip till we get to the 30s.
Okay. Yeah. So you're looking at the guys that are kind of right around 10, Scotty, Cantley, Rom, Rory, Xander. And then at some spots, Hovland is short of 20. It's also a tier that I am avoiding. But I did jump in. It sounds like I'm going to be first here. I jumped in at 28 on Colin. I'm surprised he hasn't played here every year because it feels like a spot. Again, I don't know. I think of Pete Dye tracks as really good places for Colin. Third in the field and approach over the past 24 rounds, past 36 rounds. When you dial in to the par 4 scoring, you should get a little bit more granular here too, because we have, because of the par 70 layout, we have more par 4s, but we have short par 4s. I believe 10 of them are under 450 yards. Some are like, right around 400. And you see where Colin pops in these shorter par 4s. It's really good. You kind of dial it back into some of the bigger par 4s. Some of the stuff we saw at LACC, not as good for him. So accurate off the tee. He's going to give himself a ton of birdie looks. We kind of put some of the back spasm stuff to bed. That was, I think, some concerns leading up to it. Because again, most of the stuff that happened at Memorial, right, he was in the mix on Sunday heading into Memorial and was a surprise early morning scratch due to the back spasms, because he was in the mix there with Victor and all the other guys. There was a bunch of guys in there, Denny and company, and he was gaining like 2.25 strokes per round on approach through the first 3 rounds of Memorial. Kind of carried that over last week at LACC and played really well. So looks like he's kind of figuring it out. He gained strokes on the green last week, which is a really good to see. These are not typical Northeastern greens. They are a POA bent grass mix. It's not necessarily like POA California style, which is his preferred putting surface, but they are, a little bit different and maybe have a little bit of that POA. So I'm going to play on that as well. So 28 on Colin, based off of how he's dialed in and what I think matters here this week, I think is a great price.
Yeah. And I mean, good point too. And anyone who's like ever accidentally read one of those like fact sheets from a golf course, and it's not just going to say, hey, what Bermuda grass. It's going to say like Tiff Eagle 1610 championship puttway Bermuda grass. Like it's almost like strains of weed, man. There's it's the same thing. Agronomists, there's people that have masters, in just grass, and a lot of them work at golf courses, truly. But there's so many different types, and there are really kind of 2 big differentiators between the POA. And it depends on kind of which coast you're on. This is not even close to the kind of POA greens that you're going to see out on the West Coast. And it really, the way they putt, the way they roll, you should almost treat this like bent grass. And I know Colin's best surface is POA, but bent is not that far behind. And it should be, because bent grass is pure. It's easy. There's not a lot to read. You you're going to get what you see. You're not going to get surprises like you do with some of the weird grains you'll see on Bermuda, or some of the bumpiness you get with the West Coast POA, even though he's had some success there. So I think he'll be fine here. He's somebody I like quite a bit. That's like maybe a top 20. But I didn't get to anybody until 3350, somewhere in there. I ended up with my guy Tommy.
Yeah, Tom Fleetwood.
Yeah,
Thomas Fleetwood. We're playing good golf.
I wasn't super excited because I don't know, maybe the brain's still broken. That's should we? I think he's fine. But yeah, obviously we saw him a couple weeks ago, very much in contention. So he's been in contention a few times. Like if I'm going to use form, like I always use form, and I've even upweighted it a little further. Basically, he finished first at a tournament a week ago. So yeah. This is a guy whose form's been good. And again, I'm looking for around the green. I'm looking for spike putting. He's top 10 in the field in short game right now. He's had 3 top 5s since the start of May. The tee to green has been elite. Like he is a guy who can play positional golf. He has the head to play around this course like this. He's played it a couple times. I don't know how much I should take a 2019 results into account, but when he's been here, it's been okay. And he really didn't even putt all that well last week. Like His putting should be better here. Like, he should be fine. These are going to be easier putting greens. I think he gains around the green on the field. I think he gains with the putter. And if the tee to green was playing fine, like, he's in contention. This should probably be a little lower. I know there were some places that had like a 35 for a hot minute, but Tommy, anything over 30, I like quite a bit.
Yeah, whatever those are gone. Looks like domestically 33 is the best, but you're seeing, I mean, DraftKings 22. DraftKings never has the best price, but it's 25s for the most part. So 33 is still a really, really good number. 63 on Sunday too. So like, even getting really micro on form. Played some pretty good golf last time he teed it up. So yeah, don't hate that whatsoever. And I think he makes sense that those are kind of how we're leading off. I think those guys are going to be on a lot of people's cards this week. I think they make a ton of sense if you're making a case to skip the top tier at the price off the back of a major. All those things, I just can't get there on a Cantley and Xander sub 20. It's just not. I never really want to bet Cantley anyway. So like Cantley, I need to be like maybe at 20. I just can't do it at 10. Again, I understand why he'd be a popular play. He's obviously a great fit for what it takes to win here. I'm not sure what did you kind of sprinkle in this area? Because my next guy is now kind of in this next area, though he wasn't first thing on Monday morning when we got down on him. So I'm not sure if you are still kind of hanging around in this I guess sub 60 range.
Yeah, there was a guy that we were in on in January, and then we had to back up a little, and it just wasn't the hype train kind of took a break from last summer. I think you're on him too. I haven't
put train reference.
Discord. There's a train reference, the hype train.
Up on the train reference.
Like he's the full Godfather. Like they pulled me back in. Like, man, that one round, and then just some of the splits we saw last week. It's like, man, if he can do that at LA, he can do that anywhere. Did it against a good field. I think we're both on Tom Kim.
Yep.
You could get a pretty decent number on him to start. I bet him at 45 this morning. It was a stud last week with the irons. And honestly, and I wrote this too. I said, a lot of what mattered at LACC will matter here. It's very different kind of course. Obviously, the length, the setup, but some of the things that he did well and some of the things that mattered to scoring well will matter here. And I think it's a kind of a good jumping off point to playing well here in Cromwell. And yeah, you're probably going to need to have a really good putting week to win here. Like the guy, and I mentioned this right off the bat, the guy who wins is going to have a handful of 15 and 20 footers that went in. He's had some spike putting weeks. He had them when he won last summer. Yeah. He's had them since. Like, he is capable of absolutely just, having an outlier experience on the greens. And I wrote, even during his struggles, he's maintained really high accuracy percentage off the tee. Like, if nothing else, he's going to be able to find these fairways and probably put them where he needs to be for decent short second shots. Like I said off the bat, his irons were good last week. Should be even better. I expect him to have a really good proximity this week. I expect him to have a lot of makeable putts, a lot of scoring opportunities, and just going to kind of come down to it if he executes everything, because we've seen it in the past. It's not like he's lost his game over the course of not even a calendar year. I mean, he won Wyndham? I think the hype train started at 3M, basically. Like maybe the week before there was a little bit of talk, but like he had a press conference at the 3M, and I'm like, oh, I've heard of this guy. And then 3 weeks later, he's winning a tournament. So we're not even a year into the Tom Kim cycle yet. And yeah, 45, I like this quite a bit. I know you're on him as well.
Yeah, all the same reasons. I mean, we talked about it a lot in DFS. And I think it should apply to filling out betting cards as well, is like skill stacking, right? Like, yes, this is a place where a lot of variations of players can win, and we've seen that. We got highlighted at the top, but having similar skill sets and kind of building a card that way, like, I feel like you're going to give yourself more shots at the top if you're right. And I think at this point in their careers, again, Tom Kim is still just 20 years old. It's not a bad thing to be considered a sort of a poor man's Morikawa. Like, he is a little bit short off the tee, a little bit below tour average, very accurate off the tee, and just absolutely incredible consistently with his irons. And the putter can run very hot and cold. Again, these are all characteristics of Colin Morikawa at 28. Obviously, we love to see what happened with the weekend finish at the U.S. Open. T8, great Sunday or great Saturday. He was 4th in the week in strokes gained approach. Again, we're carrying that form over. Off the tee accuracy is critical. He's 4th in total driving over the last 24 rounds. This is just a guy that I'm always going to kind of profile for Pete Dye tracks because they all have a very similar layout. That's why we liked him looking out, trying to map out one and done in January and in December. And it's like, oh, Tom Kim at the Players. Like that's whatever that number is. People were betting it in the future market because you wanted to get that because it felt like such a great fit. So Tom Kim at these shorter positional golf courses where accuracy is rewarded and irons are rewarded. Again, we're hoping on a spike putting week, just like we are for Colin Morikawa bets. So Tom Kim 60 first thing Monday morning. Absolutely love that play. And finishing position bets too, because I think he's going to be in the mix. I think T20. We'll look at some of those prices as well.
Yeah. So I mean, this is something I bet at Bookmaker this morning. It's already down to 40. Like I honestly think it's still bettable.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking, let me see domestic wise, where are we, Tom Kim? 33s, 30 in DraftKings, 45 on MGM if you can get down there, 40 on Rivers. Those are your best domestic bets currently on Tom Kim. Pretty loaded set here of guys like, in the 60 range. I mean, it is absolutely deep.
Basically, everybody in this range was damn near somebody I wanted to bet. And
I agree. A lot of guys
right in the same range. Siwoo Kim. This is another, like, I don't want to place this bet, but I ended up doing it anyway, just kind of based off the price. I think he should be a little lower. Like, I think we're at 50 on Siwoo, and he's another guy that's just like, man, if I'm going to be looking at kind of your driving price, your driving numbers here again, we've talked, it's a short course. You're going to be clubbing down. So I'm not looking driving distance so much. I'm not looking at this side. The other thing, just basic off the tee numbers. Like, what are your off the tee numbers? And then I even ran some splits or like, what are some people's off the tee numbers on shorter courses? Like, give me the 5 shortest courses on tour over the last 2 years. And like, how did everybody play off the tee on those, on places that club down? He has great off the tee numbers. It's more based on accuracy than distance. Like I mentioned, Siwoo Kim is not a bomber, not even close, but very nice accuracy off the tee. And, we say these are wide fairways, but they do have a lot of bottlenecks. There are a lot of spots where if you're an average driver of the ball, which I think we can say Siwoo Kim is, you're going to end up in these spots that do kind of narrow up, whether it's the rough tightening in or some just fairway bunkers on the landing areas. So his accuracy will definitely come into play here. And then, just good enough for him to consider at this price is kind of where I landed on this guy. It's probably his best putting surface as well. I just need him to kind of play well around the green because I think he's going to be fine. Like I said, off the tee, his irons are good enough. If we can get a decent putting week, he's definitely in the mix here. And at 50, I thought should be a little lower.
50 is a good price. Yeah, I mean, look, Pete Dye tracks, won the Sony. Like, these are the same style of courses I think we should be leaning into. I don't always love laying. I'll lay a little bit of juice, but Siwoo's minus 125 to T40 on Bet Rivers. Like, minus 125, I don't mind. So it's a great price. So that's on the notes for making the card. I like Siwoo. He's definitely in the mix. 50 is a good price. Yeah, it's a loaded range, Andy. I mean, like, just a ton of guys. Again, we're dealing with a designated event, and this is the thing that is a big notice comparative to Canada a couple weeks ago, where this is the tier that really falls off. Like, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Hideki, Sanjay, Wyndham Clark just won. Max Homa's here. Cam Young, Jason Day, JT. Like, all these guys are still at this event, and they're just kind of hovering. All of them kind of have some questions. I mean, Wyndham is obviously coming off of the back of the win, but everyone else has some maybe they're playing a little bit worse than form. So I feel like there's some numbers to pick off here if you're really dialing back in terms of like long-term form or just overall baseline skill set. Because some of these guys aren't playing their best golf right now. But these are guys that we typically, Max is 50 on FanDuel. Cam Young, people love betting Cam Young. He's 50. Sanjay, same thing, 50 out there on MGM. Like, JT, again, I think he's broken. There's 55s on JT. Yeah. It's 77 on Chris for JT. Like, are you kind of backing into any of these guys that are maybe a little bit longer than they should based off of their baseline?
Oh, yeah. Like Justin Thomas is a major winner, not just a major winner, but a major winner pretty recently.
Yeah.
And he is 78. I mean, we are talking Harris English is in front of you. Brian Harmon is in front of you. Sahith, and I'll give Sahith love because we love Sahith. But I mean, these are names that are ahead of JT. That 78.50 on Chris feels like a trick almost. Like I almost just have to bet that out of respect for Justin Thomas. But I mean, there's some guys where like, what is Justin Thomas going to do to win this tournament? Like, is he just going to suddenly solve it? Whereas like somebody down in that range that I think can actually like win, which is fucked to say because Justin Thomas is so good at golf and has been, but he's just not playing well. Like I guess I don't care if the price is probably a little too long. I don't think he's playing well enough to win right now. Whereas like, hey, Denny McCarthy, who can putt his ass off and is suddenly bringing the rest of his game around, it's like 85. Like, I'd way rather bet Denny McCarthy at 85 than Justin Thomas at 78.
It's a wild statement. If we would clip that and run that in January, you're correct. I don't disagree with you, but it is.
No, it's silly. Like you got to get around. It's almost, when you do the thing for tournaments, you do the March Madness stuff. You look at blind resumes, so you don't say like, oh, well, this is Kansas or this is Duke, this is Nova, this is Kentucky. Like, you get this name power and it sucks you in. But like Justin Thomas not playing good golf. Like that's why he was 50 last week. That's why he's 70 this week. So I do need somebody who can putt his ass off and bring the rest of the game. And like I said, it's damn close. Denny McCarthy 85. Minwoo Lee 94, Eckroat at a big number. Like those are guys I'd rather bet than Justin Thomas right now.
The JT thing is interesting because you heard the quote from Max Homa. They played a practice round together. Max was raving. He's like, if JT would have shot
everybody.
Yeah, it would have been he shot a 61 today if we would have played. And then JT actually surprising because I think he can be hard on himself at times. Came in, thought he was playing well. Thought he was like ready to turn the corner. Felt like he had done some work the week leading up to it. It played around here a little bit, thought he was kind of getting it together, and then goes out and I think it was like 76-81 or something like that. And he had to bury some like big putts on the back, like in the last couple of holes to even kind of salvage the 81. So it is interesting. It doesn't sound like a guy that feels like he's broken, and it feels like he's a guy that would tell us that he feels like he's broken, if that makes sense. So like, I don't have access to the 78. I'd think long and hard about it. Cause again, like every best number I have is 55. It's still really way too long for Justin Thomas historically. 77 78. I feel like I could, maybe not make it an official play, but I feel like I want to just have it just in case. I don't know if you get it, cash out options or anything on it, but yeah, he doesn't sound like a guy that thinks he's broken. And I think that's at least has caught my attention a little bit. So I'm going to definitely be monitoring the numbers if it's a spot. And we've talked about it a lot. So I bet him often. He doesn't have, and you look at his results, it's not a guy that's just necessarily a form guy. He goes out, he missed a couple of cuts before winning the Players.
I was going to say, he was kind of shit coming into the play.
Yeah. So it's not a guy that's just kind of dials in on these runs and capitalizes. He pops the courses that fit and he plays really good golf. So not on the card for me, but it's getting out of those guys comparatively number wise, he's the one that probably interests me the most, which is kind of wild. Cam Young feels broken,
and his accuracy off the tee is just so garbo right now.
Yeah,
that I know I haven't read Ron's preview yet. I haven't had time this morning. It just got out, but last year they let this rough grow pretty long.
Yeah,
I mean we had like 4-inch rough. And it's not Kikuya or anything wild, but 4-inch rough is 4-inch rough. And if you're not going to be accurate off the tee, even with on a shorter course, a decent sized fairways, like good luck in that. So for all those reasons, I'm out on JT for the time being. And I love the guy.
I've seen a lot of Russell Henley tickets out there. I understand that. Just the price.
Very close, but it got beat up.
Yeah, same thing. Hideki. I wish I would have jumped on Hideki, but that also got beat up. It's basically 35 or 40 now. I believe Ron got in on a 60, which is a really nice ticket. Now we're jumping down to some guys. So I have two guys. My next two guys. Again, this is the benefit of being in there in the Discord early on Monday. These numbers are very, very different now. A couple of names that you even mentioned. Shane Lowry was 100-1 on PointsBet to win this golf tournament. I don't understand that. at all. It's his, again, he's not like he's won a golf tournament very recently, but he's been competitive. He's down to like 55. You can still get a 70 on FanDuel, which I think is still a bettable number. Great history at PDI courses, multiple top 10s in the last handful of years at Sawgrass at the Players, Harbortown for the RBC. He's 3 top 20s in his past 4 starts. As you mentioned, like form is pretty good. 2 of those are majors. So like we've seen good form against elite competition. And then the putting has been better. Putting was really the problem early in the year, starting to putt a little bit too. So again, just a guy that I think is probably one of the top 25 players in this field. The world golf rankings and other things will kind of bear that out. Should just probably not be 101 and had to jump on that number. It was a bad number. Ron picked it off and I was able to get in and push that out to subscribers before it moved. So yeah, 70, I think, is still definitely in the mix. You kind of put him in that tier now with the other guys we just talked about, but 100's bad. So get in the Discord.
Yeah, no, I'm traditionally a Shane guy. I didn't bet him. I didn't get that number. And then you mentioned Hideki. I did bet Hideki.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I don't know. It's another case of like we're kind of finally seeing it. It's been such a scare with the injury, and I know AD is asking about Kevin Yu. I call him Chun An Yu by his real name. But Kevin Yu's surgically repaired knee, I don't think he'll need to walk all 72 holes. Probably he's only going to have to walk 36. So I think the knee will hold up fine. But
yeah, so my model on the site with the model that I ran using our customized database, and you can access that if you go into tools. You can look at the model that I ran and how I weighed things. We're working on for version 2 to have a toggle to make sure we can get guys on and off based off of the rounds that they played. But since we can't currently do that, Kevin Yu sits atop my model for the week right now. So there are some Kevin Yu questions will probably come in the Discord.
I believe in Kevin Yu, but yeah, Hideki is another one. It's like, up at the Memorial, it's like, hey, that wasn't horrible. And then last week too, though, I mean, the putter wasn't there, but I mean, are we going to be like surprised? Like, oh my God, Hideki had a bad week putting on a surface where it was 12 to start and probably ended up a lot faster towards the weekend. Like, no shit, he lost 5 strokes on the greens. That's just what he does. So we're up in a spot here where the putting is going to be a little more pure, a lot slower. I think that's going to be fine. And just the rest of his game has been good enough. Like, yeah, what we've seen from the rest of his game, I think we're maybe past the injuries. Obviously, we have some of these shithead injury accounts that are tweeting out all kinds of stuff that is unsubstantiated at best. Like, oh, I heard Hideki winced when he hit one out of the rough on a practice round shot. It's like, I don't know if that's true, but what I saw at the Memorial and what I saw outside of the putting, which again is forgiven because he's not allowed to putt good. If he putts good, he just win every week. He has a very if he was healthy and he putted really well, obviously he'd win a lot more, but his price was pretty big here too. So I ended up betting some Hideki. I
like it.
50-ish, something like that. I'm gonna have to go back and look where we got him.
Yeah, that's probably the one that I regret not getting in on yesterday. I think that's a really good play. Another T40 on FanDuel for Hideki, minus 120. A really good price.
Yeah, 50 at Chris. So somebody I ended up betting, and I'm not super excited about the card, but such is life. And sometimes you got to bet the guys just based off the pricing.
That's kind of how I approach this week. Because again, right now, the prices that I got, I just have Morikawa and Tom Kim sub 100, but I don't feel necessarily like I went bombs because Shane Lowry's not a bomb per se. The price was bomb-ish, but the actual player and skill set is not bomb, even in a loaded, designated event field. You mentioned Brian Harman being shorter than JT. Brian Harman was not shorter than JT on Monday. The 125 on Brian Harman. Again, now when you look at where Brian Harman numbers are currently, 50 on Caesars. Again, Caesars, a respectable market maker, takes pretty good chunks of change consistently. So that's taking some action. 50 on DraftKings. There's still an 80 on MGM, which I think is decent. But we saw him surprise, I think, a little bit early in the course over at LACC. Has been probably, in terms of like your point, and horse course guy, like 6th, 8th, 5th, and 8th for the last 5 years at this track. Again, just thinking about hitting fairways, putter can get real hot. This is a nice place for him. Again, he's not really played good golf this year, but any of his good finishes have been on Pete Dye tracks. 7th at Harbortown, played really good golf in Austin match play, T17 there, which again's a little bit of a different beast, but, put himself in condition, made him his way through the group round, and the guy was probably, off the top of my head, is probably a 4 seed in his group too. So, he plays these courses really well, and 125 was a bad number. He is plus 125 on Rivers to T40, which I think is also a really good bet.
Yeah. No, he's another one. Yeah, the price got beat up. I like him a bit. He played well. We'll talk about a couple more bombs here because I haven't added any yet. Obviously I don't have a lot of the domestics. I don't get down as early as you guys, but man, there was some just horseshit prices out first thing. This is like, we always talk about this, and it's a sales pitch, but like the only real huge advantage. It's a good conversation in there. The Discord, obviously, behind the paywall, there's members only channels where some really good discussions. You can ask questions all day long.
Smart group. Yep.
And obviously not just us, but I mean, other people in there who bet in golf every day love to get in some good discussions around certain players. But one of the huge benefits is just not only us, but everyone just pointing out like, hey, here's a massive number on somebody stupid. And there were some really rough ones. Why don't you talk about our boy here?
All right. So I typically will bet maybe 4 to 6 outrights in a week for the most part. And they typically have a similar format depending on, price wise, because I'm allocating X amount of funds to that. You'll see similar makeup for me up top with, Morikawa at 28, Tom Kim at 60. Sometimes I'll have something a little bit shorter than that, like last week, Scotty, which made it a little bit of a tighter card. But I don't typically.
I like that Freudian slip though. I think maybe that's his nickname if he starts getting second a lot. Rorikawa.
Rorikawa. That's a good one. So I woke up, and again, like I will make these bets on Monday morning from my bed. Like I will pop up an odd screen, you just kind of stretching out, look at these things, and be like, "Holy crap!" I fired 5 outrights at like 6:30 in the morning before getting out of bed, all triple digits, because I thought the numbers were terrible. Again, those are smaller stakes because they're triple digits, but the belle of the ball for us, I think, is Austin Eckroat, who we continue to talk about, who just is playing outstanding golf. T10 last week at the US Open. Like he's going to kill. We talked about him last week. We want to bet him at John Deere. He's going to make himself 18 at John Deere if he doesn't slow down.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem.
It didn't catch up.
The goddamn favorite down in Quad Cities.
Yeah, again, still an elevated event here. And again, take all this with a grain of salt. Still an elevated event. Scotty, Rory, Rahm, these guys are all playing this tournament. So it's a little bit harder. But look, 4 straight T30s are better. I believe 3 of those are like T16 or better, including last week. Over the past 24 rounds, he's played second in the field in good drive percentage, 3rd in total driving. Highlighted that a lot. That's going to matter a ton. Over his past 5 starts as well, he's gained an average of 6.2 strokes per event tee to green and 2.8 on approach. Like everything that we think matters here. This kid is, I don't know, dare we say the new, for me, I don't want to steal him though, because I think he's ours. I want to share him, but like, this is an Aaron Wise play.
This might be your Aaron Wise.
Which is every week we're in this kid because he's doing the same thing. I was talking to producer Dan before we started. I went and looked at my 2022 write-up for the Travelers, and I led with Aaron Wise. He's coming off of a really nice Memorial, a nice US Open, and now he's trying to be with Drew here. So hopefully he's got it figured out. But Austin Eckroat, the 200s are gone. Obviously, I mean, let me see where we're at on Austin Eckroat live. I mean, 75. There's still 100s. 100 on MGM, 115 on Chris. Again, a bomb. 200 was just an absolute misprice. Again, maybe you get some, back out, payouts, live number there, but plus 125 to T40 on FanDuel for Eckroat is going to be a play for me as well. And the 200 is just a bad number. So I was picking off some bad numbers in this area.
Yeah, he'll be a top a placement bet for me for sure here.
Yeah. Some others, they're not going to get the the highlight. They don't get a deck card made for them with their notes. I'm going to continue this Ludwig Aber kid is the real deal. 150 on him. We got to go in there and and take that. Sorry, Sam's mentioning that I maybe jinxing Austin Eckroat with the Aaron Wise juju. I don't want to do that to young Austin Eckroat. Justin Suh. Justin Suh is, again, if you're not a hardcore golf guy, Justin Suh was in that group in terms of like up and comers with Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland. He was he was the best amateur in the world for a long time, was like ranked higher than those guys, and just has been a little slower to get it together. He was 250 on PointsBet. There is a still right now, I actually pushed it out. I typically push all my finishing position bets together. The T40 price on Rivers for Suh is so off market. He's like plus 130 on FanDuel and DraftKings. It's plus 2.25 on Bet Rivers. So I put that out for subscribers already to T40. So Suh at 250. Mark Hubbard, 300 on PointsBet. Like Mark Hubbard was a bet for me in Canada. The irons have been terrific. He's playing really good golf. I think he probably doesn't win this tournament, but 300 is a bad number. Same thing with Sepp Straka. I thought was a bad number at 250. The irons have been really good. He's like top 10 in the last 24 rounds. It's really good from the 150, 175 bucket that I think matters here. And Sepp is just I don't know. He's sometimes annoying to handicap, but I think that's a bad price. So again, just some of these guys are. Eric Cole was at 200 as well. The guy that we love as well. So again, this is our firing at the John Deere Classic card a little bit early, but these triple digits.
Stephen Yeager.
Yeah.
Kind of pops a little for me. You should be able to find 150 or better on him. Like if you want some, $5-10 bombs, just you place $50 worth of $5 bombs, you're likely gonna have somebody who's at least within spitting distance the leaderboard on Thursday. Give you a little bit of a sweat if that's what you need in your life to get the juices flowing. But no, there's definitely a handful of guys that I looked at pretty hard like that in that range. Honestly, Michael Kim's not that far off in a few spots.
Michael Kim I have written down for sure. Aaron Rye, we're going to go back to the Aaron Rye on first round leader because, again, accuracy off the tee, positional golf, the irons have been better. The putter sometimes lets him down. CT Pan, Doug Gim.
CT Pan. I don't know if I can get there with Doug Gim, but yeah, CT Pan for sure. Like you said, Eckroat. I'm not sure what to do with Cameron Young. I'm more of a Carson Young guy now. I've transitioned to that, but Eric Cole was super high for me again. So I will have some positional stuff on Eric Cole before the week is up.
Yeah, Ches Reavie. Reavie won this event a couple years ago. He's been playing really well. I think checks some of the boxes in terms of like granular stats that we're looking at. He's plus 290 to T40 on FanDuel. He just won this event like 3 years ago. So he's playing some good golf. So yeah, there's some numbers down the board. Sometimes after going a little bit heavier on a major, I dial it back a little bit. But again, we won. And there's just some longer odds in the finishing position market that I think are valuable this week. So
yeah, for sure. So if you have anything you wanted, if you had a golfer we didn't get to, you want to discuss, you can leave it in the comments, hit us up on Twitter. If you're in the Discord, obviously tag us in there. That's the easiest way. We'll get it right away. Otherwise, hit the thumbs up. We'll see you next week. Enjoy this tournament. Enjoy this weekend. Enjoy this week of golf because boy, what's the next one?
We I think have the John Deere approaching. No, that's
Rocket. Yeah, John Deere is July 4th week.
Yep.
We're like, everyone's like celebrating. We can put a really shitty tournament up this week.
Yeah, John Deere week is Tuesday being July 4th. Andy and I will probably be doing this on Wednesday morning, I believe.
I'm going to be drunk.
Yeah, rightfully so.
There's no sitting down talking golf on July 4th. So
no.
Apologies to non-Americans who do not have that day off. But yeah, like Monday, Tuesday, I'm out. My poor wife, she works at a hospital. They don't get like holidays. She has to work Monday, but I think she's off Tuesday. But yeah, I will be, if any content I make on Tuesday will be grilling content for sure. Maybe a good Boston butt week. Make some pulled pork. So
nice.
Liv Valderrama. That is incorrect, AD. I'm still not even sure what Liv was doing. I guess it will continue on for now. I thought it was just done. It's crazy how like fast the news cycle goes. Like we didn't even talk about it. It's wild. The Saudi thing is just like an afterthought now. It's like, oh my God, that was the biggest deal in the world for like 36 hours. It's like, yeah, we're on to Nick Taylor making a long putt and now a major, and forgot all about the Saudi.
Yeah, Jay took the week off. I mean, I know that the USGA runs things, not the PGA Tour, but Monahan taking a little respite. Hopefully, he's feeling better and doing well. But it was definitely interesting.
We'll pass on our well wishes to Jay.
T's and P's
from us. You know what? And Jeff Feinberg, he's wishing him well as well. I'll throw that in there. So appreciate you guys. I'll see you next week, or I'll see you in the Discord or on Twitter, and